Just last week, we learned of a breach concerning the medical billing company, American Medical Coalition Agency, that may have exposed the personal, financial, and even medical data of 20 million patients who are customers of Quest Diagnostics and LabCorp. So let me ask you, Ms. Dixon, people are rightly concerned that some of their personal data is now exposed and could be used against them. Can data brokers legally compile, aggregate, or sell data that has been acquired through an illegal hack?
I am not an attorney, so I think that's a question an attorney could better answer you. But my first best guess is I don't think you can use improperly information that has been disclosed in an unauthorized manner for your own business purposes. That seems like that would be really out of bounds.
Dr. Cackley, do you have any idea?
I don't know the answer,
Okay,
but I can certainly find out.
Yeah, well, I'd appreciate that. Should people be concerned that data not otherwise covered by HIPAA is ending up in the hands of data brokers even in the absence of a hack? Are billing companies like American Medical Coalition Agency selling non-HIPAA data to brokers?
This is an ongoing area of grave concern for us. There are actual scores of health data. There's a frailty score that can predict very closely how sick you are and when you might possibly die. I think that there are all sorts of scores and products related to...
Not sure I want to check on that data.
Yeah, me
myself,
either.
But that's pretty frightening, isn't it?
It is, and health data that is not covered under HIPAA is become an increasing area. So
well, let me ask you this. When hackers gain access to non-HIPAA data, like in the Quest data breach, can data brokers apply machine learning to these data points to infer or reconstruct sensitive HIPAA-protected medical data?
I actually don't think that they need to acquire unauthorized data in order to do that. They can just look at our purchase histories and get an awful lot of data about us. But in terms of what's happening with this entire area, the data breaches of medical data actually can lead to forms of identity theft and medical identity theft that are very, very difficult to cure and can have extremely meaningful consequences in people's lives.
Let me ask you then, HIPAA is nearly 25 years old, and the 2009 HITECH Act provided updates which were concerning health information technology, but I'm still concerned that we're playing catch-up when it comes to protecting patients. And, of all the information that should be private and privileged to you, your health standing should be extraordinary. There are all types of consequences in that, in employment and discrimination and a whole host of things. Are there gaps in HIPAA and other data security laws that need to be addressed to better protect people today in this 21st century threat? What's coordination is missing between existing legal protections?
I do think there's gaps, and the biggest gaps that exist right now are the gaps that exist between the sectoral protections. And I don't think the answer is to just rip out the sector protections that exist, such as the Fair Credit Reporting Act or HIPAA or Sarbanes-Oxley, et cetera, but to find a way to fill those gaps in. For example, victims of medical identity theft can use their Fair Credit Reporting Act rights to get their financial information corrected, but under HIPAA, it's not possible for them, because it doesn't exist in the statute, it's not possible for them to get a deletion similar to the FCRA in their health file, so they can actually carry around inaccurate information which can really have an impact on their treatment and insurance costs. And there's not a solution yet. So this is the kind of gap we need to address.
All right. Lastly, there's one breach that compromised the personal information of 20 million patients. That's pretty troubling. One data broker has data on 300 million consumers. We're still reeling from the Equifax breach, which affected 145.5 million consumers. If the information of 300 million consumers were to be compromised, we might start calling for private information, public information, because at the end of the day, that's the result of it. What's the ramifications for a consumer if a data broker is breached? And should we hold them to a higher standard of security, especially because their volume is so consequential?
Data broker breaches are very significant. So my assessment of this is that the various state data breach laws are doing a pretty good job, especially in some cases where the data breach law is quite strong, in forcing disclosures and notices. But I think we need to do more to ensure that all of the information held that is sensitive and health-related, et cetera, is duly notified to the consumer. The problem with the data brokers is what they will say is, oh, wait, we don't have a direct relationship with the consumers. We can't notify them. And I think that is a gap that needs to be resolved. Now, the state of Vermont has resolved that gap.
Well, they could reach back to the entity that provided them the data in the first place, and they could notify, could they not?
I believe that could happen,
I
and it
just
has
think-
happened.
I just
in
think
some
they should be
cases.
held to a higher standard of security because the consequences of incredible numbers of Americans that are subject to having their privacy breached and their health care breached is just beyond acceptance. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Senator Rounds.